Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project, where our vision is to inspire all leaders to challenge the status quo. We've got a real special treat for you today as we're joined by Lisa Nezneski, the author of the book 7 Mindful Questions. She's going to share her thoughts with us all today about mindfulness and her book 7 Mindful Questions, which I believe all of you will find very interesting when it comes to things like prioritizing your work and prioritizing how you engage with your team. We've also got some special treats for you today, so please stay tuned until the end of the podcast, where we're going to share with you how you can take advantage of a free course that Lisa has curated for all of our listeners and have the chance to win one of 3 copies of Lisa's book, 7 Mindful Questions. Please sit back, enjoy this amazing interview. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Leadership Project. We're greatly honoured today to be joined by Lisa Nezneski, who is the author of a wonderful new book called 7 Mindful Questions. I've read this book and I believe that there's really valuable lessons in here for leaders from all walks of life to really think closely about the 7 questions that we're going to share with you today, and to think about how you might apply that in your own personal life, but also how you might apply it in the leadership of your teams. Greatly honoured to be joined by Lisa. Lisa, please say hello to our audience and please introduce yourself and a little bit about your background.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Nezneski. I'm what I call the meditating pharmacist. So I've been a pharmacist for many years. And, a few years back, I went through a rather traumatic situation where I found myself questioning everything in my life, and used mindfulness to help bring me back from a difficult situation. And so I actually, lifelong learner here, I got certified in mindfulness meditation to teach it. So I do both practice pharmacy right now, and I'm also a meditation teacher. And as Mick said, thank you so much for reading the book. I do think that there are many applications of the questions in both your personal life and working with people. I led a team of 275 people right before I switched jobs. The stress was tremendous. And that's when I declared, I don't want to miss my life.
I'm going to dig into that in a moment. And it's quite key to how you ended up where you are today. I'll also circle back to you about that leadership role that you had there with quite a number of people in your organization and any kind of lessons that you took from that. The first thing I want to say to our audience is that please stay with us until the very end, because Lisa has very graciously agreed to give a giveaway for all of our audience, where you're going to get access to a free mini course with Lisa about mindfulness and meditation. And we'll have a giveaway where one of 3 lucky listeners will win a copy of Lisa's book. So please stay until the very end. I'm sure you're going to really enjoy what we go through today. Please do join those competitions to win the book, and also register for the free mini course that Lisa has very nicely curated specifically for the audience of the Leadership Podcast. You mentioned about a life-changing moment there, Lisa, where it all came to a head. So let's work up to that. In the role where you had 275 people in your organization and you spoke about stress, what lessons did you take from that in terms of leadership that you might want to share with the audience today?
Leadership evolves over time. And, I started off with a department of maybe 40 people. And sometimes, you're rewarded for good work by getting more work. So by the time I left the organization, I was actually head of 5 departments. And it was really crucial for me having 5 distinct areas: lab, pharmacy, radiology, radio, medical, and radiation oncology. So those are the 5 groups that I managed, and in a hospital setting. It was really crucial to have good people in each of those positions, people that you could trust, that could act on their own, that didn't bring you every tiny little problem, that were able to problem solve. So looking across the group, at first when you're a new leader, there will be people that leave the organization because they were used to the previous leadership. And that's okay. And don't take that personally. But as people transition, you have the chance to bring in the talent that you can work with well. So I think that's really important, as well as to build the organization with people who can fit that need and function somewhat independently.
Yeah, I think that's a really important one to share with people, Lisa, about that ability to surround yourself with people that you trust. Surround yourself with people that you trust, and people that have complementary skill sets to your own and to each other, for that matter. So everyone has their blind spots. There's no single leader in the world that I think is an expert at everything. So it's really important that you do have a complementary team that all work well together and complement each other, and also build upon your own personal strengths, but all people that you know, like, and trust.
Yes, exactly. And, there are oftentimes people that will rise to the occasion as well. As you bring someone on and you give them more responsibilities and they begin to blossom in that role, that's really on them. You just saw their potential, but making sure that you recognize that what a fabulous job they're doing with their new level of responsibility. Many people hold back for some reason. Maybe it's part of, not really accepting their worth, if you will. But, really stepping into a role allows you to challenge yourself, rise to the occasion, bring your best every day, which is also part of mindfulness, and really show what it is that you can do. So, allowing people the opportunity, giving someone the opportunity to really shine, I think is what's key as well.
I want to unpack that a little bit, Lisa. In the space of a minute, you said so many things there that are important in a leader's life, and to think about how they get the best possible high-performing team around you. And one of the things that you said, use slightly different words, but giving them the environment and giving them opportunities where they can blossom is very key. You also mentioned that, some people don't necessarily understand their self-worth until that happens. Really interesting observations. How did you create an environment where that was able to occur for people to blossom and to reach their full potential?
When I took my role, I actually interviewed every single employee. And each time I got a new department, I interviewed every single employee. So I had an idea of what their background was and what they were currently doing, as well as what they felt could be improved in the department. Obviously it was a smaller department. If you have a large number of employees, that might be prohibitive. But the point I'm making is that I got to know them on a personal level. And the interesting part of that was I had a gal who was a merchandiser for a grocery chain. And she had talent in stocking shelves, knowing what was going to move. So when I put in an automated dispensing system for a pharmacy, she was able to understand product movement to be able to set those up with such confidence, like this is going to go here, this is going to go there, and it's going to work in this way. And she really excelled by doing that because she had that merchandiser background. And had I not interviewed her, I would not have known that. I gave her a chance to do that, and she actually became a really key member of the team. She was, relatively recent hire, and a lot of times they get relegated to the, very basic tasks. And now she had a rather responsible role because of her background. And I think from that, others could see that I am paying attention to your background and what you can do, and really move people in a direction of being responsible for a certain area. My personal admin, I put her in charge of the institutional review board, which was research at the hospital. You need someone with great organizational skills. Didn't really matter what the topic was. So she stepped into that role and excelled at it. So looking for matching people's talents with what the potential job might be, I think is also important.
So I have a view that every single person on the planet has got their own unique special talent, their own superpower, if you like. And it's about identifying that and allowing it to blossom. I really like that word that you used before. I think it's very apt, and bringing it to the fore. And I do believe that many organizations in the world are not tapping into the full potential of the talent pool that they have. And the larger an organization gets, the more difficult it is for people to understand, oh, did you know that we have someone in the accounts department that speaks Yiddish or whatever that talent is? I think it's very easy to miss that.
Exactly. I'm big on personal contact. So getting to know people, connecting with them on a personal level, I think is also important for a leader. I want to tell you about something that I wrote about in my first book, Grounded in Chaos. So I went to our headquarters in Texas. You're there at the big headquarters and all the big executives are around. And I stepped up to get something to drink in the cafeteria. And standing next to me was the big boss, the guy in charge. Like I recognized him. So I just sort of made small talk, but it was so natural. He was very approachable and very, I'm there with, big eyeballs, like, oh my gosh, this is the guy. So, but he was very approachable and had a conversation. And I remember that. And to me, that was meaningful. So being approachable, I guess, is also, I think, a key talent of a leader.
And if you're not approachable, you're not going to get some of that information and that personal contact that you're talking about. Yeah. All right. So I think we should come to, because we teased the audience earlier about your life-changing moment. So I think we need to bring that to the fore. I'm going to put you on the spot here, having read your book. What is Augenblick and what does that mean to you?
Yes. So I was in search of a word that doesn't have a translation in the English language to mean something very significant. And this word actually came to me. So I used it in my first book as a section of the book to talk about moments that are incredibly significant, meaningful, and life-changing. So, there's a lot there, but the one word Augenblick actually means all of that. I'm using Augenblick in my personal life to find those significant moments of meaning, where they're either so significant that they will change your life in a positive way. In other words, just looking at a sunset can be breathtaking. And, you're busy doing something else and you look up and like, wow, I almost missed that moment. So that's a moment of Augenblick, but it can also be something that changes your life. It was a negative stimulus that changed your life. And you alluded to my episode in the emergency room. So I had an episode of chest pain, and I took myself to the ER after sort of toughing it out for a while. That was probably the best thing I did, because there was a good chance that I was going to make it through the day, because as I had chest pain, my heart was responding by decreasing my heart rate. So I normally have a heart rate in the 50s. So it went from my normal heart rate down into the 40s and kept, every time I had a significant pain in my chest, it dropped all the way down to 28. At which point I took a nice deep breath, blew it out, and my heart rate started to come back up at that point. But that cycle repeated itself 2 or 3 times. And that's basically the story that I talk about in the beginning of 7 Mindful Questions, because I had to start questioning everything in my life. My heart was fine. It was stress. There were things that were out of line that I had not been paying attention to. And so I had to start paying attention. And that is the foundation of mindfulness, just being aware and paying attention to what's happening in the moment without judgment. And that's a simple definition of mindfulness. But yeah, that's basically how I got there.
I speak on behalf of all the audience to say, well, that would have been a very scary moment for sure. And we're really pleased that you're here with us today and that you got through that. And that's for certain. How did your life change from that moment? What did it make you stop and think about, and what happened after that?
So our bodies, mine in particular, stores stress, especially if you're not paying attention to it while it's happening, which is exactly what I did while I was in the job with, multiple employees. So I switched jobs. I had a new job, but my body still held a lot of that stress. And so paying attention to what's happening in the moment allowed me to begin to heal in various ways, physically, emotionally, financially. Shortly after that, I had a situation where I owed the U.S. Treasury $35,000, sort of a surprise tax bill there. And I lost my house, and I moved away from my family because I thought it would be a good choice to move to an area of lower cost, to kind of rebuild the life. And through that, I lost a whole lot more. I was isolated. I was living on 10 acres. Sounds idyllic to live on 10 acres, which is, a unit of measure here in the U.S. of land. That, you're the only one there, and how idyllic this would be. Well, it was scary because I was next to a game preserve, and I had bears and poisonous snakes and coyotes and bobcats. And I got pretty good at reading tracks in the sand, as to like what was out there. When I saw the bear, I was like, yeah, that's enough of this. So I went and lived on an island for a year, separated from my husband, went through a divorce, and ended up down here in Florida, USA, in the sunshine. Yeah, there were a lot of huge changes where I was questioning everything, paying attention to what was working, what wasn't working. Did a lot of both emotional, as I said, and financial healing through this. Obviously, physical healing as well.
We speak a lot on the podcast and in the Leadership Project movement. We speak a lot about self-reflection and self-awareness. And it looks like you've been through a period of your life that was full of self-reflection and self-awareness. What did you learn from it?
Yes, it was a period of exactly that, self-reflection. When I started to pay attention to both the emotions that certain situations brought up, I started to really understand what I was going to tolerate or what I was going to change. I had it in my mind that I was going to be the healthiest version of myself and do whatever it took. So I started to pay attention to what nourished and what didn't, and sort of moving away from all of those kinds of things that were not nourishing, setting better boundaries, better limits on my behavior. Last summer in the middle of the pandemic, it was all I could do to get up, do my morning meditation, do my day job, and then go back to bed. And I allowed myself to do that. So paying attention to what I could tolerate in the moment, I think, is partly what came out of that intense reflective period of self-reflection.
I want to talk now about mindfulness, but I think not all of our audience are familiar with the concept. So let's start with that first. I want to ask you when mindfulness came into your life, but let's start with a short description for the audience about what mindfulness really means.
Mindfulness is being aware in the present moment without judgment. So being aware of what's happening without judgment. And that's sort of a shortened version of John Kabat-Zinn's. He's a famous U.S. Person who brought mindfulness to the United States at Harvard Medical School. So being aware of what's happening in the moment without judgment.
And at what part in your life did mindfulness start to play a big role?
Right. So, obviously lying there in the emergency room on the gurney, watching the monitor and understanding that I am dying before everybody else around me understands that, you are in that moment and thinking, I'm going to miss my life. I don't want to miss my life. At that point, I had a brand new grandson. I had my two sons were married and had, were starting their lives, and I didn't want to miss any of that. So I started to use mindfulness first without actually meditating, paying attention to what was happening. If you've ever gotten in a car and driven to somewhere and gotten out and have no recollection of how you got there, you're more or less lost in thought on the way. So everything that had led me up to that point, you develop the skill of being in your head. And it's productive because that's how you make your living. But you're not really living when you're only in your head, because your body starts to suffer, because it starts to store all of those things that you haven't processed, and they come out as illness, as disease. So I was pretty unwell at the time. I ended up in the emergency room, and now I'm 60 pounds lighter, exercising every single day, watching my diet. Of course, I've always done that, but still, a lot of the stress, you sort of insulate yourself. And so that's how I put weight on. You just have to look at yourself, look at your life, look at, do I want to live this way for the rest of my life? I just start asking myself questions. And that's how the 7 mindful questions came about. You find yourself so upset about something, it's like something's happening. I don't know which thing to do next. So I started to say, what am I doing right now? And why am I doing it? And do I even care about this? And I found there were a lot of things I just had no care for.
Mm.
You just were doing them by habit. And when you go through large life transitions, you do things out of habit as if you're still back in that situation. Beginning to pay attention by, for me personally, it was asking questions.
That's a good segue for us to talk about the 7 mindful questions then. What stimulated to develop that? What drove you? Was it a moment in time where you went, I need to codify this? What drove you to develop the 7 mindful questions?
I was sort of picking out tasks for the day, and I decided that I was going to go peel some carrots. At least I could get that done, right? So I'm peeling an entire pound of carrots. I don't know why I had a pound, which is a large amount of carrots. Almost half a kilo of carrot. Peeling them, and that repetitive motion. Actually, I had a literal voice in my head that said, "How are you?" And I was pretty upset, even though I was doing something repetitive. And I'm like, how the heck do you think I am? I'm living on 10 acres in the woods. Nobody's around. I never get to see anybody. So my mind just started to race. And I thought, oh, that question was important. I need to pay attention to that. And so what am I doing? And why am I doing this? And do I even care about this? Well, I need dinner. So, okay, I do care about this. And then I took that pause and the deep breath, which helped, of course, even when I was on the gurney in the emergency room. When you take a deep breath, you activate the body's parasympathetic nervous system, the calm system. So that gives you some space to allow things to sort of enter. When your mind is racing or you're doing something and you're lost in thought, you don't have the space for better ideas to come in. So by taking the pausing and the breathing, that allows you to come back and think, well, what else should I be doing? Which, these first 4 questions, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Why do I care about it? What else should I be doing with that pause and breathe in there? They're actually good tools to teach your employees, because a lot of times what they're doing is task oriented, but they choose something that might be intellectually stimulating, but not necessarily towards the mission of the group. So the because isn't exactly, they like it, but it might not be towards the mission. So redirecting them back to what is our mission? What are we doing here? What is our main purpose? So those first 4 questions, I think, are helpful for a leader to teach in their role, especially if you've got, individual contributors, highly intelligent people who are working hard, but may need a little bit of direction.
Right, so let's bring that to a head, because we're now getting into those questions and we're starting to tap into why a leader might need to look at this in terms of either applying it themselves or with their team. So for the audience, let's break down the 7 questions. Let's list them out and we'll talk about how they might use it themselves and how they might use it with their team. So the 7 questions, please, Lisa.
So the mnemonic is, I developed it because, there's another famous book that's like 7 Habits book that some folks can't tell you more than one habit, maybe iron sharpens iron. I decided to structure the questions. They're the way that I think, to be honest, but I had, to make them relatable so that others could remember them. The mnemonic is, I'm aware because I care, A, B, C, pause and breathe, choose a better alternative. So it's sort of like these 3 stairs that I had in my house when I was a kid. And I would go down these 3 steps and I'd like, forgot something, and go back, run back up those steps and then run down the stairs. And I sort of got in the habit of running the questions sort of similar to going down the stairs. So aware because care, or the first 3 questions. I'm aware because I care. What am I doing right now is the awareness question. What am I doing? And then the second question is, well, why am I doing this? No judgment, just why am I doing this? Because all behavior is purposeful. And there are times when you're doing something just to fill time, not really for any particular reason other than it's there, you're doing it, but it doesn't have any real long-term value. Clean out your inbox, right? So your email inbox, that's a good example of an activity that sort of needs done, but it may not have any long-term value. Care. Why do I care about this? Where does this fit in my overall personal core foundation or work core foundation? The mission that I'm trying to establish. So that's the care part of it. And then pause and breathe. Again, allowing that space for good ideas to come in. And then typically I'm making a list at this point. What else should I be doing? Not necessarily could, because it could is like you could do virtually anything, right? I mean, if you're a possibility thinker, there's the coulds are always out there. You could do this, you could do that. But which of those could is really a should? This is a top priority item. So I actually help you decide which are your top priorities in a little decision grid that has 4 quadrants, high value items and high effort items that you can stage over a couple of days, and high value, low effort items that probably you should get done right away, that don't require a whole lot of effort. And then those low value, low effort items, you don't necessarily have to do those at all, and maybe just kind of eliminate those. But that helps also strategically organize what it is that you're doing so that you're on task and on target. And, time is money. So you want to spend your time doing the things that are going to bring the most results. And then the last 3 questions are, what is essential? That's the choose, the C. So you're going back up the stairs, choose. Better alternative, choose. What's essential? So of all those things that you wrote on your shoulds, which are the absolute ones that are important to get done and a top priority? And then when you've chosen something, you can think, well, how can I do this better? What can I do better about this? Because a lot of times we get into habits of doing things a certain way, and we don't challenge ourselves to do it in a better way. And there oftentimes are better ways. And that's the beauty of teams, that people come up with the ideas on how to do things better. So bouncing things off one another, I think, is really important. And then finally, using something like best alternative to a negotiated agreement, BATNA. What's the best alternative to use of that group of possibilities? So coming back all the way up, I know you did a session on negotiation, so
very recently.
Your audience is familiar with BATNA, I'm sure. So, choosing the best alternative and then moving in that direction. So it helps you pick a direction and start to move. It is somewhat action oriented.
I want to summarize that now for a moment. And then immediately after the summary, I want the two of us to just bounce a few ideas off each other, very informal, bounce a few ideas off each other about how to apply that in a day-to-day business and day-to-day team leadership role. So the summary that I take away from your book, Lisa, which I think is just wonderful, by the way, is, what am I doing right now? Why am I doing that? Why is that important to me? Pause and breathe. Is there something that I should be choosing to do that is a better alternative to that, to use my time more effectively and more efficiently? That's the summary that I take away from it. Now, did that on purpose so the audience can let that sink in for them. Let's put that into everyday life. So you're in a business environment, you're a team leader, etc. How would you say to the audience, are there ways that they could apply that every day, every hour, to improve their leadership or improve their own personal kind of environment?
Well, one of the easiest ways is to plan your day. So figuring out what it is you're going to get done by really examining what are the essential items that need done, and then scheduling them into your day, and having some of those lower value tasks more or less roll over into some other area. So that helps you personally to plan. It can help you plan a team with a deadline. Like what do we have to get? What is the most important thing that we have to do for our deadline? And let's all focus on getting that done. And if I'm hearing some better alternatives, then, now's the time. Let's hear those alternatives. And then heads down. Let's get to work. So those are two examples that I would use. I like to plan 90 days at a time with longer range planning using this method. Thinking, especially spending a lot of time in the pause and breathe, what should be done in that time frame. So just mapping things out, what might work, and organically you start to put things in. Like, well, there's no way I can do 5 of these very high value, high effort items in 1 week. Let's figure out when they're going to occur and sort of stage them. So, like, for example, the book, I need a workbook. And because the exercises that are in there, I think it would be helpful to have a separate document where you could begin to really write and think and reflect and be able to look back. So I scheduled that for next week when I had several other deadlines this week that there was no way I was going to get to it. So next week, my writing time that I have blocked out is focused on that. So figuring out when something's going to occur in your larger range schedule, longer range planning. And the mindfulness part of it is allowing yourself space that if it doesn't get done, it's okay. If it's a personal task and it doesn't get done, if it was a deadline and you missed it, well, then, there's other recourses that perhaps there are other tools that you can use besides the 7 mindful questions. But the 7 mindful questions are to orient you so that you can meet your deadlines.
All right, I like that planning aspect. I think that's really important to think about. I like what you said about the high effort things. You can't do 5 high effort things in the same day, potentially not in the same week. That was a good one. And I like your grid about high value, high effort versus high value, low effort. I think this is a really good one for people to start thinking about, planning out your week, your day, and thinking about how are you using the most of your time. I do like that prioritization element of it. I'm going to try something unusual for a podcast here. I'm just picturing a lot of people listening to their podcast as they go on their daily walk or they're at the gym and seeing if any of them react to this. So a question for the audience here, and be honest with yourself. How many of you have had a day at work where you were really, really, really busy, and at the end of the day, you can't really put your finger on what you actually achieved? Like, put up your hand now if you've had days like that, right? And I'm picturing the entire audience is now doing that because I'm sure that we all suffer from this. And I call that being busy. In other words, I had a really hectic day today. I jumped from meeting to meeting, from one thing to another. And if I had a to-do list at the start of the day, I look at the end of the day and not a single one of the things was actually achieved or finished. I think this is a big part of where we can apply Lisa's 7 questions. So have a think about this. In the next meeting that you're in, ask yourself, why am I here? Do I need to be in this meeting? Is that important right now? And is there a better alternative where if I wasn't in this meeting, I could be moving the needle on something more important? Just as an example, particularly when we think about this work from home world where we're using Zoom left, right, and center. And I find myself doing this. I go from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, exhausted at the end of the day. And when I do my self-reflection, giving myself the honest scorecard that, you know what, I was really busy today, but I didn't achieve what I set out to achieve. And I could have made smarter choices throughout the day to have a more effective day. What are your thoughts on that, Lisa? That's my own self-reflection from your book, but what are your thoughts about what I'm sharing there?
I think you nailed it, Mick. I think that is exactly what I'm going for with the questions, is that you can take the questions and use them to reorganize your day, be able to understand what worked, what didn't work, and make those changes to, as you said, move the needle on something more important. So I do agree. And I use the questions, as you said, every hour, as I'm doing something. It is sometimes really hard, Mick, to switch gears between Zoom meetings. You're going from one concept to the next concept to the next concept. I found myself yesterday going back to back where I told at the end of the meeting, I had something to follow up. I said, you're going to get this evening, but for the next 2 hours, I'm going to be tied up. So I know you need it, but I am going to be in 2 other meetings. And then at the end of that, you'll get your report. So, somewhat also staging and negotiating and setting expectations as you're switching from task to task. So I think using the questions to get yourself into what is the mindset, what is this meeting for? What am I supposed to be doing here? I think asking those questions at the beginning will bring you, the whole idea is to bring your whole self to that, whatever's going on, so that, people really know when you're paying attention and you're not just, you're not on your phone, you're really there, you're with them, you're in the discussion and contributing because you do have something. And you said this, everyone has something to contribute. And so making yourself open and available to contribute is part of mindfulness as well. So, and that's what the questions, bringing yourself to the meeting, your whole self, your body, mind, and spirit, so that you can really be as personally productive as possible. And, sometimes it's not even a task that's productive. It's being there in the moment with that person who you might be meeting with somebody and you don't realize that a parent is passing away and they're doing the best they possibly can, which might not be what you need. All of a sudden you're way more compassionate that they are really trying. So bringing yourself to the situation, you're able to get a better pulse and knowing that, this particular situation is unusual for them. So finding out really what's going on, being mindful in the moment, what's happening in their life, makes you a better leader. Allows you to give them the space to go through whatever personally they're going through. And I think that if there's anything that the pandemic has done for us in a positive direction, it's having much more compassion for the human condition and people trying to work and trying to get done what needs to be done. So
that's something that I greatly admire in my boss, Jeff. So he is very much doing what you just said. He's very much in the moment whenever we're having meetings. And there are some meetings that he says no to and says, well, that's not the right use of our time right now. But when we have our meetings, he's always in the moment. You don't see him distracted on other things. He's always engaged. He's clearly paying attention. He's not distracted off doing emails or on their phone, like you said. And he's very much in the moment. The other reflection on what you just said, and work from home and COVID has brought this along, is we now have a window into people's lives that we previously didn't have. It used to be the office and home, and now it's a little bit blended. And you end up on Zoom calls where you do see, kids coming in and asking for a drink, or sometimes coming in a Spider-Man outfit to want to get attention of their mum or their dad, etc. And I actually have really cherished that. That's been something that has been great because you can see what's going on in their lives. It's not in a invasion of privacy way, but just having so much more empathy that work-life balance is right in front of your eyes now. It's not something that you talk about in a boardroom. It's right in front of your eyes when you're on that Zoom. Let's circle back to mindfulness in a moment. I want to now flip, because we spoke a lot about using the 7 questions for what I'm going to call individual management of your time, personal time management, personal prioritization. What about in a team leadership sense? How do you believe a team leader could use the 7 mindful questions in the leadership of their team members?
Well, I think in working on projects where everybody has to bring something, everyone is contributing a different part of it, you can organize the work using the 7 questions, figuring out the high value, high effort, and how long is that going to take you? How much time do you need? What can we get done in the meanwhile? Who's going to handle that? So using the overall framework, if you will, in setting, particularly for project management, I think, as well. And, when you have a team where you've got someone who may not be fully engaged, you can begin to introduce the questions to them in a way that they can begin to increase their own personal productivity as well. So there's a way that you can teach it, and there's a way that you can use it in the group collectively to move you towards whatever the goal is.
I want to add a little bit and say it's also about living it. And if you live it with your team and in some respects reinforce it through your behaviors. We'll use the meeting example again for now because it's so relevant right now. So if you do see that we're having meetings that we don't need and is not a good use of our time, to call people on it and say, well, okay, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Why is this important? And then pause and reflect and breathe as an entire team and then ask, is there a way that we could choose a better alternative as a team? So make it a team behavior, not just an individual behavior. I challenge anyone, next time you're in a meeting and you're sitting there and you're scratching your head going, what is this meeting about and why are we doing it? Stick your hand up and ask the 7 questions. Next time you're in a meeting where you don't understand the importance of that meeting, I challenge you to use those 7 questions to challenge your teams and see if you can get them thinking as well.
Nick, I want to tell you is sometimes risky if you don't have the type of open culture to allow that. I got myself in a lot of trouble asking those very same questions. What are we even doing? Why are we doing this in the first place? So I would caution you to move the dial slowly on changing your culture and don't get yourself, don't stick your neck out too far. But I think it's an important realization that we all do things out of habit, and meetings can be habitual and not really have a purpose. So thinking about when is the right time to do that. So it's just, I got myself in a lot of trouble doing that. So I don't want an email. You got me fired.
That's very sage advice, Lisa. What it requires is a psychologically safe environment to do so. And we speak about that a lot on this show. And I know that, here we go, here's a funny meta thing happening. I know that a lot of my team listen to my podcast. And I know that they would say, yes, that's the environment that we have in my team. But yes, I take your point, Lisa. Choose your moments. If you do believe you have that environment, go ahead, give this a try. And anyone on my team, you're welcome to do it. And you know that you can do that, right? So, but yeah, you're right, Lisa. Not every organizational culture is ready for that conversation. So pick your moment. That's good advice. All right, let's circle back to mindfulness now, specifically the personal practice of mindfulness. How do you use it in your day-to-day life now?
Well, let me first talk a little bit about how I used it in healing, because, when I was going through major life changes, about the only thing I could pay at that point was attention. You open the wallet and the moths come out. So paying attention allowed me to refocus and reprioritize what was really most important to me. And so I started to look at what I call my personal core foundation. And it has what I consider, and I've been doing this personal core foundation thing for many, many years. As a young pharmacist, I was working in nursing homes and in hospitals, but I would need to drive. So every day on the drive, I would make sure that I had touched on every part of my life that was important to me, whether it was spiritual health and saying my prayers, my own personal health and preparing a healthy meal. My financial obligations were met, my work obligations, my home life, is there food in the fridge for dinner tonight, that kind of thing. And then, of course, relationships and the people who are important in my life. So I began to bounce everything up again, those domains, if you will, and making sure that, you don't always have the strength or the energy or the time to devote to all of those areas. But in the aggregate, if you're touching on all of that, so paying attention to those as I went through my own personal changes. I have been probably a 30-year meditator. So I came upon a 60-day challenge where you would get 5 minutes, just 5 minutes every day. And I thought, I can do that. I can do 5 minutes. So I began to do that for a 60-day period, and I never really stopped. I started doing it morning and afternoon, or morning and evening. So first thing in the morning, depending on what I have for the day, the busier the day, I will carve out a longer period of time to meditate, because I find that helps me really hone in and be effective throughout the day. And I do the same evening meditation that I've done for several years. So twice a day, I'm doing. In the morning is typically the mindfulness meditation, where you open to the awareness, you pay attention to either breath, bodily sensations, or sounds in the environment, and you keep bringing your attention back to one of those three things. Those are the beginning basic anchors. Of course, there are other ways to do it, but that's the main initial focus, is to pay attention to breath, bodily sensations, or sounds in the environment. So by using a meditative practice, in addition to a writing practice where I'll be journaling, and it helps me process my emotions as well. So a gratitude journal is really kind of, if I can talk a little bit about getting to a state of gratitude. During that period of time when I could only pay attention, I thought, well, at least I can be thankful for something, even for how crappy my life is right now. I'm just going to find things to be grateful for. And so I started to write a list, and I got a nice little journal. It's called His Grace is Sufficient for Me. It has a Christian statement and a Christian bent, but I just started making lists. And like 10 things I'm grateful for today. And, I just opened up randomly here. It says, I'm grateful for penicillin. I wonder what was going on that day. I'm grateful for little seedlings that are growing so well. I'm grateful for my warm bed, my dog, my kitchen, my stairs into my house, little things like that. And it sets a tone to allow grace to develop. And so being grateful for various things in your life is so important, to appreciate what it is. No matter what it is that you're going through, there are still something that you can be thankful for. So, if it's hard to think of, I am grateful for, you can just say thank you. Just say thank you. Gratitude is a doorway into mindfulness, being present in the moment, being aware of something that's significant that could be potentially life-changing, like an Augenblick moment. So it sort of all goes together, but, I think the highest vibration we all have is love. I think grace and gratitude is right below that. So it really does help reframe even a negative situation in a positive way.
I want to unpack that a little bit more, Lisa, and clarify a little bit for the audience listening. Mindfulness, and we come back to the very start where Lisa was introducing this to you. So mindfulness is about being in the moment, being aware, paying attention, and without judgment. There are multiple ways in which you can embody mindfulness. And two of the things that Lisa is introducing there, one is meditation, and we'll come back to that in a moment. The other one is a gratitude journal. And I use one too, by the way. I do a self-reflection journal about what worked well today, what didn't work well today, and what would I do differently tomorrow if I had my time again. And I have a gratitude journal where I write down 3 things that I was grateful for today, and I do that every day. So these are 2 of the practices that you can put in mind. But in honesty, you can use mindfulness in every part of your life. It could be the meal that you're eating. So you're sitting down. It could be a healthy meal. It could be maybe a less healthy choice. But you can really take your time and to be mindful and in the moment. It unlocks all kinds of senses. Like you could be biting into a hamburger and thinking about all of the sensations that you're noticing at that time. Instead of being distracted and watching TV while you eat your meal, that you're really tasting, feeling, and smelling that burger as you're enjoying it, so that you really take yourself to a new level of being in the moment and being mindful about what you're doing. So 2 practices, absolutely. Journaling, meditation, but in all honesty, you can use this in almost everything that you do every day if you just stop, be in the moment, pay attention, be aware and be aware without judgment. So for everyone listening at home that's intrigued by meditation, maybe you've either never tried it before yourself or you're an experienced meditator, I invite you to join us for a bonus episode that we've uploaded where you can join Lisa as she will lead us through a guided meditation so that you can see it for yourself. Try it. See whether it works for you and what you get out of the idea of meditation, for you to think about whether you would like to build it in to your daily practice into the future. And thank you, Lisa, for offering to do that. And I encourage you all, if you've never tried it before, please do try it. If you have tried it before, join Lisa and I as Lisa takes us through a guided meditation in that bonus episode.
I also wanted to bring to your attention, Nick, that in the bonus free gift, there is a mindful meeting preparation meditation that I use. You know, you get to that last 7 minutes before the meeting's supposed to start, everything's ready, but you've got nothing to do. So I use the mindful meeting prep for that.
I love that.
So
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Hopefully your listeners who are also meeting on Zoom will be able to get some use out of that.
Thank you, Lisa. And we'll provide a reminder of the different bonuses that we're providing with this episode at the end. So let's bring it to our final few questions, Lisa. Firstly, this one is something that we ask nearly all of our podcast guests. We ask this question or a variant of it. You know that many of our listeners are new leaders. They're people that are relatively fresh out of university or college. They might be an individual contributor and they're moving into their first team leadership role, or they might be a more experienced leader that's looking to learn more and always sharpen the saw. What's the one advice that you would give to a young graduate, might be 3 or 4, 5 years out of university, and they are moving towards a team leadership role? What's the one bit of advice that you would like to give them today?
You know, I found myself in that very position right out of graduate school. I had a role where I was leading a team with much more experienced and older practitioners who were on the team, and I was responsible. So again, establishing a personal contact, you know, they still may have some jealousy/resentment that you're in the role and they're not in the role, but that's not your fault. That has nothing to do with you. That's on them. Being confident in your own skills and not being afraid to make mistakes. And there's almost nothing out there that can't be fixed if you make a mistake. And frankly, if you didn't learn from it, you will the next time you make that mistake. As you are in your role as a new leader, you'll be challenged in ways that you've never been before, and allow yourself grace to make mistakes, to try new things, but above all, have confidence in yourself that you're learning through the process. So, and best of luck to you. I think it's helpful to have a mentor, someone older that may be just passionately involved or engaged, maybe in a different type of industry than the one that you're in, someone different than your boss, that you can bounce ideas off of. So that's also helpful.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful advice for all of our audience, and thank you for sharing that with us. I'd like to now bring us to a close. First of all, in a moment, I'm going to give you the floor, Lisa, to talk about how people can get in contact with you and more about your books and if they want to learn more. I will now remind people of the competition that we're running. So if you look in the show notes, there is an option there for you to enter a competition by registering for the Leadership Project newsletter. You can enter a competition to win one of 3 copies of Lisa's book, 7 Mindful Questions. There's also a link there. Lisa so kindly put together a curated mini course specifically for our audience where you can get access and have a look at some of these guided meditations that you're talking about, Lisa, and also a guidebook for people to go through. So please remember, in the show notes, you can enter the competition And you can also get access to that free mini course that Lisa has so kindly put together for us. So Lisa, over to you for closing remarks and to let people know how they can learn more.
I have a website, Mick. It's my name, lisanezneski.com, and it's lisanezneski.com. And you can reach me there. You'll see all of the various things that I do. As a pharmacist, I help people integrate their medications with natural supplements. I teach mindfulness. You'll be able to see some of the coursework as it develops. In the latter part of 2021, I have 3 courses that I'll be teaching. One in particular will be about the 7 mindful questions and using them and putting them into action. Mindfulness Meditation 101 will be happening. And the 3rd course is How to Heal Yourself, which is an energetic meditation type style. So those courses will be coming. The names of the book, again, 7 Mindful Questions on Amazon. 7 Mindful Questions. My first book is called Grounded in Chaos, where you can read about my crazy life and how I actually got out of all the situations that I put myself in. I'm going to continue to write and read. I'd love to hear from your listeners. If they sign up, of course, for the bonus, then you can give me comments on how those meditations are helping you and how they're helping your life. That helps me devise things that are really meaningful for others, which is really where I get the largest kick out of life, is helping someone else. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for your time today, Lisa. I will add a few more things, actually, now that I think of it. I will add the Amazon links to both of your books in the show notes as well, Lisa. And here's a call to action for everyone. Something that's near and dear to all authors, and this is a call to all of you, whether you're reading Lisa's books or other people's books. Amazon reviews, really important. If you read someone's book and they really have an impact on your life, and I'm sure Lisa's 2 books are going to be no exception to that, please go into Amazon and give a review. Give them 5 stars and make a commentary so that other people can also find those books. The more reviews a book gets, the more the Amazon algorithm kicks in, and therefore the more people will find the book. And what you're really doing, you're helping the author, but what you're really doing is you're helping other people discover that book that changed your life or something that you got value out of. So really, you're not just helping the author, you're helping all kinds of people when you do that. So there's a call to action for all the people in our audience. When you read a book, particularly Lisa's books, and you enjoy it, make sure you do leave those reviews. Thank you so much again, Lisa. You've been absolutely wonderful. We're so glad that you agreed to come on the show. We wish you the best of luck with your book, with both books, and best of luck for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mick.
Hey, you've been listening to The Leadership Project with your host, Mick Spears. Thank you so much for joining us for this wonderful interview with Lisa Nezneski. Please don't forget to check out the free giveaway, the course that Lisa has kindly curated for us, and also to enter the competition to win one of 3 copies of Lisa's book, 7 Mindful Questions. All you have to do is register for the Leadership Project newsletter and you'll automatically be taken into that draw. Please do remember to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast service so that you're notified of all future episodes. And we look forward to bringing you our next episode on creativity with Don Campbell. We hope you all stay safe, take care, look out for each other, and always remember to challenge the status quo.